So there's a new DA in town, Los Angeles to be more exact, and his name is George Gascon. George Gascon is an old white man, but don't be fooled, because George said, hey, cash bail, hell out of here with that. Death penalty, hell out of here with that too. And it sets the precedent for a different way. Some folks look at DAs and AGs, attorney generals and district attorneys, and think, you know, they can do better, or they can be tougher on crime, or they can do this, that, and the third. And here in Hennepin County, we had, you know, that idea of being tough. And with Joe Biden, wanted this heightened penalty for drug offenses and for, you know, neglected poor neighborhoods, and lock them up. 3 strikes, you're out. You know, and you destroy lives like that. Because people that come from exigent circumstances, it's not crime, it's survival. And when you don't understand that, and you think that punishment, it goes punishment over rehab, property and profit over people, you get everything ass backwards, right? So you start building a campaign on, I'm being tough on crime, I'm tough. And that's not the point. It's not saying you're tough. In all reality, you ain't tough, you ain't gonna do nothing. Like you ain't about to jump up out the bus and like start calling these people out. What you're doing is you're hiding behind cops, hiding behind a crooked legal system, and helping it benefit more affluent white neighborhoods. But all that aside, some of the rules in place, death penalty, cash bail, all these things systemically ruin poor lives, not poor lives, people with low income, primarily folks of color. And you get a parking ticket. All right, we're going to ramp it up on 200%. Oh, you didn't show up for that warrant. Now we got to ramp it up even higher. So it gets to the point where they dig you financially in such a deep hole, you can't ever buy your way out of it. You can't. You just can't. And unless you're Martha Stewart, and you can just go away for a little bit in a nice little condo. But it shows you how duplicitous the law is if you have money versus if you don't. And what George Gascon is doing is at least applying a different, like a paradigm shift on it, a different perspective on it all. We don't need to kill nobody. Matter of fact, we don't even need cash bail. We can keep this thing rolling without all that. Like we can make it pop without that, without these punitive measures, without this punish first, brand this person a criminal first. We'll talk about rehab later. Like that whole mindset has to go. So when you look at attorney generals or district attorneys in your town, in your county, there's a new way of looking at it, and go no further than George Gascon. Now, might not be doing, the overhaul that, we all want to see done to the legal system or dismantling of it. However, this is a start. And, you could maybe not celebrate it or maybe not disparage it, but look at it for what it is. And it's a step in a different direction. If we're not going meritocratic on it, it's definitely a step in a different direction. And where do you see DAs and AGs going next, and how can they be better? And I was speaking to a group of law students, I think it was 2-3 weeks ago, and I was telling them, like on the Zoom call, I was like, you're already in a system that is crooked, duplicitous, and rapscallion in nature. You're already in a gamey game. Like this whole thing is game. It's just gamey game, and it's all meritocratic. Who can get who and who can be tough. But as the future of lawmakers and lawyers going into this, how can you shift it? How can you change the way we look at the law? How can you make the law less a foreign language and more a community conversation that we can all have? Because the withholding of lawful power is what keeps the poor, and it's what keeps certain neighborhoods in exigent circumstances. It's what keeps trauma cyclical in certain demographics and neighborhoods. And I just think that folks going into law can do better. They definitely can. They could change it. Not even do better, they can change it. They can do different to it. And when you look at George Gascon, even when you look at the DA in San Francisco, now he's 40 years old and he, I forgot his name. It's something wild. Not really that wild. Maybe it's French. Something else is French, right, Max? But he prosecuted a cop for the first time. He brought charges on a cop for the first time in San Francisco. What? Like, it's crazy. Some people are like, that's crazy he did that. I'm like, that's crazy that's the first time. It's 2020. You're telling me, and imagine being a cop in San Francisco and being like, you pull the trigger or not, and nobody's getting charged here. You know, like, the mindset now San Francisco PD has to have is, it's the worst they could do. Paid leave. You know, like, you're looking at, I'll tell you this. You're looking at a system that will punish people of color for things they didn't do more than they will punish cops for things that they did with intent, outside of their job, outside of the law. And that type of injustice, that can't exist. Because you're going to get, psychologically, if you steal that Snickers bar from the corner store, you get away with it. Ooh. You're statistically more likely to do it again because you got away with it. If you get caught, you get, some type of punishment, you'll probably stop. You might think about it again, right? But if you have cops that continue to pull triggers, continue to beat people up and bring brutality to neighborhoods and get away with it, they're most likely going to keep doing it. Yeah, it's going to happen. It's going to keep happening because it's part of their culture. It's part of the permission that we're giving them. But getting back to George Gascon, once you start holding people accountable and creating a system that isn't going to be punitive to people of color and folks from low-income neighborhoods, you're starting to change the way we look at the law and change the way we look at punishment and start to look into rehab possibly. So look up George Gascon. What can happen differently for your AG or DA in your neck of the woods, if you even care? I know some people are like, I don't care about that. That's local politics. Yeah, well, you gonna care once it comes around. Because I was in the same pool of ignorance, and I was like, well, I don't care about Mike Freeman, until you start to look up the track record, and you're like, hey, I could do that. It's like a bad quarterback for your team. You're looking at Vinny Testaverde in the 90s. You're like, I could do this. Get him out of there. I feel like I could do this. Like, pay me $80 million. I'll be Kirk Cousins. Like these people, when you look at it and you're like, wait, he did that and he said there was no criminal intent and that they did that to Jamar Clark? You gotta be kidding me. So look it up, get involved with your AG or DA, and very curious how that goes for y'all. Thank you so much for watching this video. We'll see you in the next one.